Hey guys, it's Ryan with Spiceworks. Hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Today's Spiceworks partner webinar is from the good folks at SpecterSoft, Simplifying Event Log Management. A couple of things to make note of. There's a question box on your screen. Use it. Type until your fingers hurt. Our presenters love questions, so toss some their way. We'll get to these questions towards the end of the presentation. Another thing to note is we will be recording the webinar. If you have to step out for any reason and you miss something, no need to bow your head in shame. You get the recording in a week and you can watch it whenever. Even share it with friends. The last thing to remember is hard to forget. SpecterSoft is giving away an iPad mini. We'll announce the winner after the Q&A, so stick around. You have to be attending to be eligible. With all that, it's time to meet our presenters. We have 3 members of SpecterSoft's team, Ezra, Jack, and Alex. Take it away, guys.
Thanks so much, Ryan. This is Ezra, just so you get a feel for my voice. Jack, say hi.
Hi.
And Alex?
Hi, everyone.
So I am from the marketing team at SpecterSoft, and Jack is one of our senior sales engineers, and Alex is from our sales leadership. And we're going to let Jack do most of the talking, and we're going to kind of play that support role. But our goal for this webinar is to help you simplify event log management, and we're going to do that by giving you some great tips on what Microsoft provides and how you can simplify event log management without breaking the bank, because I think we all know that there are solutions out there that cost thousands and thousands of dollars that will make this easy for you, but what other alternatives are there? And with that, we'll just get it going here. So just a quick agenda. We're going to be talking about what event logs are and what they're used for, and what makes them so painful. What is this great pain we all feel when we have to think about event logs? And then what's available both on Microsoft native tools and for non-Windows servers, for firewalls and other devices. And then how SpecterSoft can help using our product Server Manager. What else can Server Manager do? Quick Q&A, and of course the reason why we're all here is that iPad. Joking. So what are event logs? Event logs are the windows into what's happening on your servers, and they're commonly used for these 5 things, among others: identifying behaviors, ensuring security, finding problems, proving compliance, and quantifying performance. Jack, you want to give us maybe an example or 2 of each one of those?
Sure. Let's actually start with ensuring security. That's quite important, as everybody knows. You want to make sure, whether you're doing this for your own purposes or whether you have any kind of regulatory compliance requirements that you have to meet, that you want to make sure that everything in your environment is secure. And a great way to do that is to monitor the event logs. The event logs can tell you some great things, like when accounts get locked out or when there are multiple failed logons for different accounts, changes to group policy objects, things like that, even things like when a user is being added to a domain admins group, you'd want to know about that. So you do want to keep an eye on your event logs for those types of behaviors. Finding problems is pretty straightforward when it comes to event logs. Generally, when you do have any problem with your Windows servers, first place you're going to go is look in the event logs and see, especially in the application or the system event log, if there are any warnings or errors or anything that could indicate what the issues are that you're currently having. Proving compliance goes back to what we were just talking about a few moments ago, making sure that behaviors on your network and in your Windows environment are the way they're expected to be, making sure that you're just not willy-nilly adding users as administrators just to accomplish a simple task that could be accomplished maybe with a little bit of extra work, but just trying to take the shortcut, making sure users aren't accessing resources they're not supposed to, and things like that. And quantifying performance is a little bit harder to talk about when it comes to event logs, but what's great about that is you can, especially if you have a system in place to monitor those event logs, you can look and see if you have any recurring issues that keep popping up maybe at the same time every month or on a weekly or a regular basis. You might be able to discover issues that you may not have otherwise noticed if you were just kind of seeing them from time to time. So if they're occurring on a regular basis, you could track down those things and maybe start to figure out what's causing those.
Thanks, Jack. And we seem to have skipped a step here. We did have a couple of poll questions to launch, just to get a feel for our audience, what you guys are doing for event log management. And Ryan from Spiceworks, if you can launch that first poll, which is what are you using today for event log management?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so everyone should have that poll question. What are you using today for event log management? I just decided to reiterate, and the choices are nothing, native tools, and paid solutions. So we're going to give you guys a little bit of time to answer that. All right, we'll do about 5 more seconds. Seems like people are still giving answers. All right, and then so we had 30% say nothing, 30% said nothing, 52% said native tools, and 18% said paid solutions. So everyone, all our attendees should be able to view those results. And then Ezra, are we going to launch another poll, or?
Yeah, let's just move right through these, just to
okay.
You know, it'll help us speak to the audience a little bit better. The second question here, Ryan, if you could launch that, is how many different devices or applications do you monitor logs from? And your choices are 1 to 20, 21 to 50, or more than 50.
Ezra, if you had to guess, where do you think the number one answer is going to fall on this one?
I'm going to guess
21 to 50.
You know, just you know, and who we're talking to, which is the, you know, the folks from Spiceworks, some folks from some other places. I would guess we're either on the low end or on the high end. I think that middle range is going to be the weakest one, but that's just a guess.
I'm thinking it's going to be the strongest one, but we'll see.
We'll see. All right.
We're about to be.
And here it comes. Oh, Ezra's right, as usual.
I am right. I'm usually right.
He thinks.
So
I'm glad I didn't put any money on that.
Me too. I was just a passive observer, so but I'll be happy to read off the answers since I had no skin in the game. 1 to 20 said 51%, or 51% said 1 to 20, 21% said 21 to 50, and 28% said more than 50.
Awesome. And the last question here is, what about log management is the greatest pain? And your choices are really what you know what we're going to talk about later in this webinar, which are the critical components to be successful at log management. And that's consolidating your logs to a central server, a good storage and archiving policy, reviewing, filtering the log data, setting up proper alerts and notifications, or automating responses. So and Jack, what's your gut on this one?
Let's see.
Can they just answer yes to all?
I'm going to say it's maybe the third one or the first one.
Okay.
Consolidating or reviewing / filtering. But of course, I'm probably going to be wrong again. Oh, I was right. I said the third one.
All right, we got the result. Right. Congratulations, nice. Jack.
Thank you. I wish I did put money on that one.
You don't win an iPad mini.
No, you don't, Jack.
So, and just to reiterate to the audience, I think everyone can see it, but Jack did win that one. So reviewing, filtering the log data, 61% of you chose that. So thanks everyone for your participation, and I think we'll move forward with the presentation now.
Sure, and you know, this wasn't on purpose, but it actually sets up this little story I want to tell. I actually just read this in a blog post today, and it fits right into the result of this log, which is reviewing and filtering the log data as being our greatest pain. And the story I read was related to the Neiman Marcus attack by hackers. And they gained access to Neiman Marcus systems and obtained 350,000 credit card numbers over a 3.5-month period. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, I'm preparing for this webinar in event logs, and they have intrusions going on over a 3.5-month period where they stole 350,000 credit cards. Like, something's not adding up. Like, surely they had some methods in place to alert on the fact that they were being hacked or being attacked or some kind of intrusion going on. And so as I read further, I found that Neiman Marcus did have a system in place, and there were alerts set up on security incidents. And the alerts over the 3.5-month period went off 60,000 times. So now I'm wondering, 60,000 alerts over 3.5 months, how come nobody noticed? And I think that fits right into reviewing and filtering the log data. Is if in 60,000 alerts over 3.5 months you're not noticing, there's something else wrong. So the quote from the Neiman Marcus spokesperson was that these 60,000 entries over the 3.5-month period would have averaged around 1% or less of the daily entries on these endpoint protection logs. So it basically meaning that they had 600 entries a day in a sea of tens of thousands of entries. And so basically their pain is very much the same as all of yours, which is reviewing and filtering that log data, letting the important things rise to the top, so that you're not searching for that needle in a haystack. And this is specific to those security logs, but you have all these other types of logs as well. So it's not just one needle in one haystack, but it's needles in a whole bunch of haystacks. And Jack, do you want to talk briefly about this slide, about the different types of event logs that you might be monitoring?
Sure. I think most people that are attending this webinar probably understand this information, but Windows logs information into a various number of event logs. Some of these exist on every server, such as the application, the security, and the system log. Others are only on purpose-built servers that handle a specific role, such as your directory service log, your DNS server log, your FRS log, and so forth. But they all handle records that are related to those particular services in the case of directory service, DNS, and so forth. Your security log is going to handle all of the records associated with your audit policies that you have in place. Any success or audit failures are going to go into that security log. The system log is going to have your operating system type events, generally any kind of log entries that are related to hardware failures and things like that you'll find in the system log. And then your other bucket where virtually everything else is going to fall, unless it has a more specific location, it's going to be the application log. So you're going to see events that are logged by the operating system and other software applications are going to go there. And that SQL Server is an example. When your SQL Server backups finish and so forth, they'll write entries to the application log. So I think what's on this slide, Ezra, is probably pretty basic information for most of the people on this call.
Sure. And so, this kind of leads right into why the event logs are so painful. And the obvious answer is the huge amount of data were collected. And we shared, in my little story about Neiman Marcus, just, 60,000 alerts specific to that intrusion among the tens of thousands of entries a day. And you can see, I think we pulled this stat from Gartner, that a medium-sized enterprise creates around 20,000 messages per second of operational data in logs. So in a single day, that's 500 million messages, adding 150 gigs. So like we talked about, it's really finding that needle in the event log haystack and making sure that you're covering the areas you're responsible for. You don't want to be the IT guy who slipped up and didn't have the system in place, didn't have proper coverage, and that resulted in a breach or a system failure or anything of the sort. And so I think, one of the things we have to talk about are, what you're supposed to be looking for, what's meaningful to you, what's important to you, how you should get alerted to it. And once you have your head wrapped around all that, we should be able to get to a point where we're simplifying event log management. So to get going here, we have multiple different sources of event logs, anything from firewalls, routers, printers, workstations, servers, and we listed 7 here, but there's probably a whole lot more out there. And each of them produce all different formats of logs. You have your non-Windows stuff spitting out text logs, your Windows events. And then we have specific tasks, which we call the critical components, and Microsoft calls the critical components, to successful event log management. And those are consolidating, management, monitoring, alerting, and remediation. And if you check off these 5 around your areas of responsibility, you'll be setting yourself up not only for success, but also for not a painful headache every time you have to think about event logs. So just let's talk about consolidation first. Why is consolidation important? So in our first poll, we had that group of 1 to 20 servers, and then that group of more than 50 servers or devices. So if your 1 to 20 servers are all sitting in the same room, consolidation might not be the most important thing to you. But if you have more than 50 servers all in different areas, getting all the event logs to one place where you can manage it from one place is probably a pretty important aspect. And so you need to understand which server logs should you consolidate, and then have the right place to consolidate them. And then you want to move on to having a good storage and retention policy and a good archiving strategy. And this really speaks to compliance a lot, because SpecterSoft has a heavy focus in the security game and specific to compliance. And I know that with regard to PCI compliance, if you have a breach and you don't know the extent of the breach, you basically have to over-report. So if you have 350,000 credit cards stored in a database and 350 of them get exposed, but you don't know which 350, you're reporting all 350,000. So really understanding how you store your log data, a good archiving strategy, consolidated in one place are definitely 2 critical components. And then monitoring is obviously important. You want to have a good monitoring policy for security and compliance. You want to have a good monitoring policy to ensure server performance and uptime. Just getting notified that a server fails, or that you have an intrusion going on, and making sure that those alerts are not getting lost in a cloud of alerts. And that's really the next step. So monitoring is useless unless we can inform the right people when issues arise. So you have a whole bunch of different options when it comes to alerts, and obviously if your server is in a different location than you are, sounds are probably not the best way to do it, but an email or a text message might be more appropriate. And then the last part is, as an IT guy and me as a marketing automation guy, I know I don't like to work very hard. I would rather work smart, and so having a remediation and some automation in place to fix common errors like reboots and restarts of services is probably another good aspect to a well-managed event log strategy. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jack so he can talk about what free tools are there available. What does Microsoft provide for event log management?
Sure, thanks, Ezer. And we're using the term in this webinar, we're using the term event log kind of loosely. We're focusing a lot on the Microsoft event logs, but we're not just talking about that. We're talking about the log data from other locations as well, such as your firewalls and your switches, things like that, and also application logs that are written to text files. SQL Server doesn't just store its log data in the event viewer, and neither does Exchange. Both of them write at least some of their log data into just plain old text files, and you're going to want to consolidate and look at that information as well. So we are focusing a lot on the Windows event logs, but keep in mind that the rest of that is important as well. So what we're looking at right here is just a screenshot of the event viewer, nothing fancy. I know most of you have all seen this before. Hopefully all of you have. But the event viewer is a great utility. There's some great functionality in there. If you need to store your log information for a period of time, you can configure how much data can be saved in that event viewer, how soon it can be rolled over. You can export that event log data to a file and back it up, and so forth. But we'll talk a little bit about that more as we go forward. So let's move on to the next slide, Ezra. Also with Microsoft's Event Viewer, they do help you a little bit when it comes to consolidation. You can take events from multiple Windows event viewers or multiple Windows servers, and you can consolidate them all to one single instance of the event viewer. It does require configuration at each computer that's going to send or receive event log messages, and we're going to go through some of that in case any of you guys are interested in setting up event log forwarding. I've made an effort to go through the majority of the steps here, but you certainly will want to do some research to make sure that there aren't any additional steps that you may need to take place. For example, to get started on each source and collector computer, the source computers, by the way, if this isn't clear, the source computers are going to be the computers that are generating the logs that you want to send over to your central location. And the collector computer is going to be the server that receives all of that log information. And there are a couple of ways that the event forwarding can be configured. One is for the source computers to send the information to the collector computers. The other, or the collector computer, I should say. The other is for the collector computer to go out and retrieve the log information from the source computers. So it's called the collector, but it doesn't necessarily, depending on how you configure it, have to actually do the collection itself. But the first command that you're going to need to run on each computer that's going to be involved in the event log forwarding is going to be winrm space quick config at the command line, as you can see here on this slide. So let's go on to the next slide, Ezra. And this is just showing you the output of that command. We basically are just going to click the select yes here, and it will configure the first step for our event log forwarding to be able to even take place. So now let's go on to the next slide. So the next thing that we need to do is just on the collector computer. So if you've got 100 servers sending event logs to the collector, and the last step that we did needed to take place on all of those servers. This next step only needs to take place on the collector, and that's going to be WEC util space QC. So if we'll go ahead and move to the next slide, Ezra, we'll see the output from that command. We're basically just configuring a service so that it will be set to delay start, and it'll take care of that for us. So let's go ahead and click Y here, and that takes care of that, and move on to the next slide. So you can see it's a little bit of work to set up the event log forwarding, but once it's done, it's pretty straightforward to set up the subscriptions, and we'll get to that. But the next thing we need to do on each source computer, again, if you have 100 servers that are going to be sending log information to the collector, on each of those 100 servers, you'll need to do this task. But you must add the computer account of the collector computer to the local administrators group. So in this particular screenshot, the source computer that is sending the event log information is my MS1 server. You can't really see it very clearly in the screenshot. But what I need to do is go into the local administrators group on that server, and I need to add the computer account of DC1, which is the machine that's going to be serving as the collector. So again, if I have 100 different servers that are going to be sending log information, then we need to make sure this takes place on all of them. And you can automate this to some degree. You can do it through policy and so forth, but that does need to be taken care of. Once that's done, now we're ready to create a subscription. So when you go into the event viewer and go to subscriptions, it does look like it's pretty straightforward. Just click a create subscription and go from there. But those prerequisites do need to be in place before we can do that. So once we select that we want to create a subscription, we provide a name and description for the subscription, and that can be anything that you want. It's just for your own purposes. Let's go to the next slide here. The destination log is going to be the event log where you want to store the information that you've received. It's going to default to the forwarded events log. You can select any of the Windows event logs to have those messages go into those, but it does make sense to go ahead and store any forwarded events right into that forwarded events log. So next is going to be how we want to collect that information. I mentioned this just a few minutes ago, but we can have it be collector initiated, in which the collector computer will go out to each source computer and retrieve the log information, or it can be source computer initiated, where each of those source computers will kind of push their log information over to the collector computer. And next is the events to collect. So we're going to go to the next slide, and we'll see what happens when we click that Select Events button. Over here, this is where we can set up a filter. And I'm not going to go into this a second time, but if you create any custom views in the Windows Event Log, you're going to see this same screen. And what this allows you to do is create a basic filter that allows you to choose what events you want to see when you're doing the create views, or in this case, when you're doing event log forwarding, it allows you to choose which events you want to forward, so you don't have to forward them all. You do not need to consolidate every event if that's not important to you. You could choose just to consolidate specific ones. So if Ezra moves to the next slide, we'll see we filled out a couple of options here where we said, for example, we only wanted to collect the warning and the error messages from the application and the system log. So if we were to move forward with this particular filter, then those are the only messages that it would consolidate. So, you know, it might be, you might think right off the bat, I want to consolidate every message from every device and every server. If you want to do that, that's fine. If you've got the space and the resources to save that information, that's great. But you also might decide that there are just certain events that are important to consolidate into a central location. And you want to make sure that whatever solution you use, whether it's the Windows Event Log or a third-party solution, has the flexibility to allow you to choose what it is that you want to consolidate. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about as far as native tools goes in monitoring. Monitoring means you're going to be looking for specific events to occur, and you want some kind of notification to take place when those occur so that you'll know when those happen. And the Windows Event Viewer does allow you to do that, so if we'll go to the next slide. There are a couple of different options that I've highlighted here. The first one is to allows you to attach a task to the entire log. So if we were to select that first button that's highlighted in red, or that first item that's in the Actions pane in red, that would allow us to attach a task to that specific log. And what that means is the task that you attach would take place every time an event is written to that particular log. Now, the second one that's highlighted down there below allows you to attach a task to that specific event ID. So in this case, it's a 4624 event, so you would be able to attach a task just to that particular event ID. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see an example of what happens when we select that. So on this first page in the wizard, we can give our task a name. And you can name it anything you want. It doesn't affect the way it functions. It's just for your own purposes. Then when we click Next, that takes us over to indicate what event we're going to attach this task to. These are grayed out. They're not changeable that I'm aware of. I've not found a way to change these. If you want to attach to a more specific event, you would have to create a custom view, apply your filter, and then attach to events in that custom view. So as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, this particular page in the wizard is just informational. None of those boxes ever seem to light up, at least when I try to set this up. So then on Action, this is where we talk about notification, and you could potentially be talking about remediation here. We have three different options. We can start a program, which might be to launch a script maybe that restarts services or restarts the server or makes changes to accounts in Active Directory possibly. We have an option to send an email if we need somebody to be notified of a particular event, and then also display a message is similar to sending an email, obviously, but it just is going to display it a little bit differently. So that's how we can attach tasks to our events in the Windows Event Viewer using the native tools. So now, if we look over how Microsoft's solutions stack up, as far as consolidation goes with basic event logs, there isn't really any, but I wouldn't necessarily say none there because they do offer the ability to consolidate to a degree with the event forwarding. But as we've seen, it's not scalable to a very large degree because of all of the tasks that must be performed and able to configure it. But that's really just a matter of opinion. If you're able to perform all of those tasks, then you could certainly scale that as much as you need to. The management, there really isn't any there necessarily. If we go into monitoring, it's just per event. So like we looked at a few minutes ago when we attached the task to send an email to that particular event, we were only able to do that on a specific event, and we couldn't get any more granular with that, unfortunately. That 4624 that we were looking at is an account logon event, but it can relate to several different types of logons, and a logon type 2, as an example, is an interactive logon. Maybe I want to know when somebody logs on interactively to one of my domain controllers. It's going to generate a 4624, but it may not always be a logon type 2, which is what I want to know about. And there really isn't a way to get more granular with our filtering so that we can look at that specific logon type using the native tools. So we would either have to get a notification for all of the 4624 events, or we would have to get a notification for none of them. And so when it comes to monitoring, you want to be able to make sure that you have the ability to get a bit more granular when it comes to those filters. And so now I think we're going to talk a little bit about a solution that we're able to provide in this area, which is SpecterSoft Server Manager. It provides many different areas of functionality, including the event log management that we talked about. It includes some security event reporting, application and resource monitoring, also disk monitoring, and then actions, alerts, and reporting can be configured as well.
And
so now we'll just take a brief look at that. So, go ahead, Ezra. What?
You now have presenter controls if you want to share out your screen there.
Is it working yet? Okay, here it goes.
I see your screen perfectly.
Excellent. So this is SpecterSoft Server Manager. And what I'm going to try to do is go through this rather quickly so that you all can see how quickly you can get up and running with the event log consolidation and monitoring and so forth. I have nothing configured here in Server Manager except a few filters, and we'll create our own filter in a few minutes, so the ones that I've created really don't matter. So what I'm going to do is go under Computers, Devices, and Hosts, and I'm going to create a group. I have OCD and like to keep everything nice and neat. So what I want to do is keep everything nice and organized. So under Windows Servers, I'm going to right-click and add my devices. I can type in the computer names if I want to. I can search for them. I can browse Active Directory, whatever I'd like to do. So let's just take my 2 member servers and my 2 domain controllers, and we very quickly added those into Server Manager. So now in order to start collecting our Windows event logs, we're going to create a configuration template, and we're going to use an event log consolidation and monitoring template. So inside here, I'm just going to give it a name. And again, I like to keep everything nice and neat so it's easy for me to tell what's going on. We're going to specify how often we want Server Manager to collect these events. So I might say, for example, instead of every hour, I'd like them to be collected every 20 minutes. Then under Logs, we can select the event logs that we want to consolidate. We can certainly consolidate additional ones. If we were to go here and select one of our servers, it'll give us a list of all of the event logs that exist on that server. We can also consolidate the Microsoft application logs as well. But just for our purposes, let's just take Application, System, and Security. Under Consolidation and Monitoring tab, we're going to select which event log we want to configure options for, or in my case, I'm just going to take all. Now, I mentioned earlier that that you may want to consolidate all of your log information, or you might want to consolidate just some of the information depending on what's most important to you and what your policies dictate that you keep. We have an option for that here. We can either save all of the entries that we receive from those servers, or we can run the entries through a consolidation filter and only save entries that pass those filters. So for example, the warning and error message it's talking about in this sample here, I can just go right in here and select to only keep warning and error messages. Or I can say, for example, if I, for whatever reason, I only want to consolidate events where a user account's created, I could use that filter for that. So this is just going to control what gets consolidated into the Server Manager database. And then we can set up our retention policy. So this speaks to the management of your event logs. Here we can decide how long we want to keep the information that we're storing with Server Manager. If we don't have any compliance requirements, maybe we're just storing this information for troubleshooting purposes, so we can easily review the information when issues arise. Maybe we don't need to keep the log information very long. That's great. We can do that. We still have lots of advantages associated with consolidating that log information into one place. If we have compliance requirements that dictate that we need to keep the log information for a period of months or years, then we can configure that here as well. And then this retention policy runs every day, and it can drop off events that have fallen outside of our retention period. We can also set up post-consolidation filters and actions here. So this is where you can take the filters that you create and have Server Manager notify you or take some kind of remediation action when it sees events that occur that match those filters. So for example, if I want to get an email every time a user account is created, I could just add in my filter for that. And then I could specify that I want Server Manager to send me an email when that occurs. Or maybe on a regular day, 5 accounts are created. And that's fine. That's not really an issue. But if I see 15 accounts being created in a single day, maybe that indicates something's going on. Or let's just take, for example, an account being locked out. That might make better sense. So we're going to go to account locked. And we're going to say we don't want to know every time a single account gets locked out, or even 5 accounts. My organization is big enough that 5 accounts get locked on a daily basis just as a matter of doing business through the day. But if I see 15 or 20 accounts getting locked out in the course of an 8-hour period, that might indicate that something's going on that I need to be aware of. So I can indicate that here that I want to know when accounts have been locked out more than 15 times in an 8-hour period. So we could certainly set that up. And then we can get notifications just on the events that we're looking for. Because it may not always be a specific event, but it may be the recurrence of a particular event that you're interested in. So now we just assign this particular template to our Windows servers, and I'll select Apply, and that'll take care of it. So now we've configured everything we need to configure as far as consolidating that log into Server Manager. These will run within the next 20 minutes or so. I'm going to go ahead and trigger that I want it to go and collect that log information now, because we're going to look at some of it here in just a moment. You can see the output down here at the bottom of the screen. So it's going out to those servers and collecting that log information now, and then we'll review some of it. So let's go back over to our domain controller for a minute while it collects that log information. And I'm going to go into the event viewer here and look at that example that we looked at in the screenshot. So we may go here and try to find a 4624 event, and let's say we want to filter for that particular event, and we want to know whenever a user logs on to our domain controller. We can go here and we can create a custom view. If it'll catch up with me, here we go. I think it's going. It's thinking about it. I assure you it's not always this slow. Okay. Let's see if our other event viewer wants to work any better. Ah, here we go. So it's going now. So what we can do is we can specify that the event is logged anytime. I know it's going to be in the security log, so we'll say security. And we can specify the event ID that we're looking for. So it's a 4624. But we really can't indicate the logon type, and I'll show you here after we create this view. We'll see all of the events that are associated with that, and they're all going to be our 4624s. But as you can see, the majority of them, and we have thousands of them a day that are logged this way, this particular view shows more than 68,000 events. This logon type is 3, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for logon type 2, which means somebody logged in with the keyboard at this particular domain controller, and we just can't really do anything in order to provide that kind of granularity in our filter. There's nothing under keywords that lets us do it. You may be able to do it using XML. That may be possible. I've never gotten into the XML filtering. I know it can be quite complex to write those. But with Server Manager, it's very easy to look for this. So I'm going to go back over to my Server Manager console, and I'm going to create a filter. And by the way, we already have built-in filters for this, but I'm just using it as an example. We already have a filter for successful logons, where you can select the event IDs you're looking for, and you can even select the logon type. And you don't even need to know the number. You can just select what type it is. So we could look for interactive logons by a specific user on a specific machine. But I'm going to create a filter for this from scratch. I'm going to go right in here and select New Filter. I'm going to use a complex event log filter, and I'm going to call this Interactive Logon. My criteria is going to be that the event comes from the security log. The log level is going to be Success Audit, and it's going to be a 4624. Now I'm going to leave this filter like it is for a moment, and we're going to go run it against those security logs. I'm going to look at all of the security logs from all of my servers at the same time. I can very easily do that just by searching for my security event logs. There's all 4 of them. So far today, we have 20,000 events that have been generated on those 4 security logs. I'm going to apply the filter that I just created.
You know, as you were creating that filter, I saw a question pop up about applying multiple filters, and I think just want to point out that you can create all these complex filters. It's not a single filter.
Yeah, you can do Boolean, so you can say this or this or this. So you could certainly do that. So I'm going to take Interactive Logon, which is the filter I just created, and as we look through here, you can see along the bottom of the screen, I still haven't done anything about my logon type. So we're seeing all of these same entries that we saw from the event log. Because what we've done here is pretty much the exact same thing we did in the event log. So what we need to do now is we need to modify our filter, because we can get a bit more granular here than we can with the native event log filtering. So I'm going to add another criteria. I'm going to say the message contains, and I'm going to put logon type 2. And what I'm going to do here is put a \S asterisk, which is a regular expression set of characters that indicates that there is some number of spaces right here. I mean, you could certainly, if you know how many spaces it is or just want to copy and paste it from the event itself, you could do that. It's always the same number of spaces, but I just like to look fancy. So now what I'm going to do is go and apply that same filter. And I have another one called Interactive Logon, so note that this one's just Interactive Logon. In fact, we'll call it Spiceworks Filter. So we're going to go back to our event logs. I'm going to run a merge again and see all of my security logs from all 4 servers. And now of our 20,000 events, I'm hoping, if all goes right, I should just have 4 events that match this filter today. So we're going to take our Spiceworks filter that we just created, and now we have our 4 events. And as you can see at the bottom here, each of those is a logon type 2. So I was able to now create a filter that provides me with just the information that I'm looking for, a subset of those 4624 events. And now if I wanted to know anytime somebody logged onto one of my domain controllers interactively, I could very easily do that by going up to my event log consolidation monitor, modify the properties of that. I'm going to add that filter in here. I'm going to add my Spiceworks filter. I'm going to indicate not an email, because I don't have an email server set up on my lab, but I'm going to indicate that I want it to display a message box on my screen whenever it detects an event that matches that criteria. So now we'll run over to our domain controller. It was slow a few minutes ago, and we'll log out of that. We'll give that just a moment. We'll log into it. Now we could also set up another type of monitor that watches for the event in real time, but just for the sake of keeping this brief, I've just set it up to show me when that event is consolidated. So now I'm going to go through here and tell it to consolidate my events again. And it's going to go and retrieve all of the events that have appeared since the last time I generated, or last time I ran my event log consolidation, and I have apparently misconfigured something here. My message did not want to show up here at the moment, so let's see if we can.
And then Ezra or Jack, just a quick question. We're getting so many questions regarding this demo. There seems to be a ton of interest. Is there anything, obviously they'll get this recording, but is there anything similar that they can see that will kind of mimic what you're showing them just to learn more? Is there anything that they can do? Just because we're seeing so much interest via these questions.
Yeah, we actually have a trial version that's good for 30 days that they can download, and if they reach out to us, we'd be happy to go through the product one-on-one with them and show them around it, and then they can spend their own time taking a look at it during that trial period.
And Ryan, let me just embellish on that a little bit more. So for the folks that were interested in the native tools, we're going to be sharing out the entire presentation deck, and you can even go so far as to reach out to myself or Jack on Spiceworks, or we'll share our information directly as well, and we'll be happy to help. And then with regard to Server Manager, your trial is fully supported, so reach out to us. We'll walk you through it. Jack is absolutely brilliant at this, and yeah, he's a great resource. So we're definitely available.
Yeah, and I know we're getting close, and we want to address the questions, but I do want to show those real-time notifications. So I'm going to jump over to this other lab here very quickly, where I know that I have the yes.
Just one second. I do also want to add to that. I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to point out to everyone, if they are not inclined to do an entire trial, we also have a great tour right on the website. If you go to the products, it's invaluable. It'll take you step by step on what it does, how it covers everything, and then you can absolutely reach out again to Ezra or Jack, or if you want, you can reach out to myself as well, and we'll go ahead and provide that information as well and grab Jack on a high-level demo for individual use.
Sure.
Right.
Thanks, Alex. And just one other thing here. I did want to make sure you guys saw the real-time notification. So this is another lab I have set up, and I've configured this one to give me a notification in real time when an account gets locked out in Active Directory. So in order to mimic that, I'm going to go to the command prompt to run as user. We'll use Britney Spears. She's always fun to mess around with here. And we'll try to launch Notepad using her account and just give it 5 failed logon attempts. And we should immediately see, or within just a few seconds after this one here, we should see a notification pop up on the screen that provides us with that event. The on-screen notification is great, but it may be more appropriate in the real world to use an email. But here we go, and now we can see the notification appeared indicating that a user account was locked out. The subject is the machine where the account was locked out. We've also got information here about the particular account that was locked out. I've also set up notifications, for example, when a user account gets added to my domain administrators group, when the security event log gets cleared on a server. That's something you would want to know about. And you could get a notification for things like that. Anything that you want to create a filter for, it's very easy to configure notifications for those particular events when they occur. And I know we touched on this briefly earlier, but I do want to mention that we also function as a Syslog server. We have events coming in here from my firewall, so you can consolidate, filter on, notify on events that occur on other devices like your routers and your firewalls and things like that, and also text files. So we can consolidate log entries from text files as well. So I'll hand it back over to Ezra. I know I've taken a ton of your time, and I do appreciate everybody being patient. And if Ezra wants to look at some of the questions, I'll be happy to answer any of them that have been asked.
Sure. Jack, you want to give me presenter rights again? I think we have a couple of more slides to go through just to provide a couple of more details and information.
Here it comes.
So, here, thank you. And so, we are going to, we have Hans and Franz here, and we're going to pump up the value a little. And so it's a little Billy Mays style. So what can Server Manager do? You're not just getting your event log management. You're getting your Windows resource, your network resource monitoring, your disk resource monitoring, your database resource monitoring, registry changes, Windows certificates. Surely a product like this costs way over $4,000 like the competition, but in fact it doesn't. It's $425 for 20 nodes. Jack, you want to tell us what a node is real fast?
Yeah, I get asked this all the time because there are some competing products out there. So, for example, if you're monitoring on a Windows server, you're monitoring CPU and memory utilization. They count that as 2 monitors. Well, technically it's 2 monitors, but for us it's the same node. So a node would be a switch or a firewall or a Windows server. It doesn't matter whether you're monitoring one thing or 20 things on that Windows server. It just is a single node.
Got it. And so in summary, logs are overwhelming and unwieldy. So management is easy if a solution is scalable, centralized, and automated, and accomplishes our 5 tasks. Right? So I think Jack showed you as he was running through that how he consolidated his logs to one place. He developed a retention policy, therefore he has management checked off. He's able to monitor and able to alert and able to automatically fix issues. So that on top of being scalable and centralized, which is some of the pitfalls that we encountered with the native tools, really accomplishes all of our 5 critical components of log management on top of our 3 easy management aspects to give us that scalable, centralized, and automated solution. So in short, having the right tool can make all the difference. And I really think that this tool was built with this audience in mind. It's the one that you can go to that gets the job done. On the previous slide I had to mention where we built this thinking about developing something that had 90% of the functionality at 10% of the price. And so, for you guys who are managing less than 20 servers, you still don't have to do everything the manual way using the Microsoft native tools. You can easily afford a solution like this. And then for those of you who need something scalable, need something way up there on the higher end for 50-plus servers, you don't have to go to the thousands and thousands of dollars solutions out there. You can find a solution that is still affordable and will get the job done. And just to give you a couple of quick notes about the awards we've won, we like to brag a little at the end. We're up for another award right now at RSA with SE Magazine. And just some of the people who use our products, specifically Server Manager. And the thing to notice here is, while these are all bigger companies, they cross all different industries, and so this is a scalable solution, one that you can configure to the way that you need it. And just a few more resources here. We're running out of time, so I'm trying to rush through this. Sorry. So how can you get a free trial? You can go to this landing page, which we'll send out to you, or you can just go to our website, spectersoft.com, and navigate to Server Manager. We also have a free white paper, which is based on this webinar. It covers almost everything we covered here, maybe even a little bit more. And you can find that at that bit.ly link. All of this information will be emailed to you separately as well. And we'll move on to some questions, and then we'll jump to the good part. Jack, do you want me to just read out a couple of questions to you?
Sure, Ezra, thanks.
And then guys, I apologize. I just want to interject really quickly. We'll go a little bit over since we spent some time explaining some things. But audience, you should still submit your questions because that resource will be available to our presenters. If we don't get to your question, they can follow up with you. So just keep submitting them.
Absolutely. Any question that doesn't get answered live, we will follow up with you. So the first question is, can we actually clear the event logs with this product? And I think that you showed that we can develop that retention policy. So
yes, I think he's asking about can we clear the event log on the server where we're collecting the event logs from, and the answer is yes, we can. That's optional if you want to do that.
Thanks, Jack. And let's move on to the next question. What is the size limit on forwarding event logs? Thinking it would run out of room quick.
Honestly, I'm not certain. My guess is that the forwarded events log is probably configured very much like any of the other event logs, where you configure how many you want to be able to live in there. I can look right now very quickly if I go here. Yeah, so it's just like, it looks to be just like any of the other event logs where you configure a maximum size. and then indicate what you want Windows to do when it reaches that maximum size. The normal options are there. Archive the log, require it to just kind of sit there stale until you clear it yourself, or overwrite events as it needs to. So it looks to be the same size setup as any of the other event logs.
And then, guys, can we just switch it back to the previous slide with the contact info? A few people are
Sure.
sending in those questions. Thanks.
One problem this person has seen is, how do you handle a server with custom log files, such as a proprietary application? We get this question a lot related to firewalls and such.
Right. So I assume that you're talking, and you can clarify this back in the question section if I'm understanding your question incorrectly. But if you have a third-party application that creates its own Windows event log, I've worked with applications like that before. You can consolidate those using Server Manager as well. When we go through and set up the log consolidation, you can select that server, and it'll list all of the event logs that exist on that server, even if there are any custom ones. Or if you don't want to go through that step, you can just type the name of the event log into a box there on that screen and add it. So whether it's a native Windows log or if it's a event log created by a third-party application registered in the event viewer, you could collect those with Server Manager as well. That's not a problem.
Awesome. Is the licenses by device, and I think we answered it's by node, right?
That's right, but you can call it device, sure.
And it works with AS400 or mainframes?
I'm not sure. I don't have a lot of experience with those machines, so I'm not sure how those logs are available to be collected. If they're able to send their messages through Syslog, then absolutely it'll work. If it writes its log to files, as long as we have a way for Server Manager to access those files, it can use Windows file sharing to access files that you want to consolidate log information from, or if in the instance of a ESX server or a Linux type server, you can use SFTP, which is basically file transfer over SSH. You can provide credentials, and Server Manager can log in using those credentials and collect the files and consolidate the log information that way. I would have to know a little bit more specific information about how the logs are stored on those machines to determine whether or not we could retrieve them.
And how well does this solution work for servers at remote locations?
It works great as long as you have the connectivity to those machines. Then everything works great. For the event log consolidation, we use WMI, and then for consolidation from other devices, we would either use Syslog or SFTP, as I mentioned before. And the consolidating of log files from Windows servers uses Windows file sharing. So as long as the connectivity is there, it works great. I have many customers who have one central installation and collecting log information from other locations. That's not a problem at all.
Do we offer any pre-designed templates for federal customers, given that there's specific guidance provided on log collection and management?
We don't have any specifically designed with that in mind, but if that customer would like to speak with me, I would certainly be happy to help build some templates that meet whatever requirements he has in place.
The other thing I want to mention is that that user feedback for this product is always appreciated, and if there's something that you want, that is something that will get done for the most part. The development team this morning asked me to express that to the group. Are you able to apply multiple filters or just a single filter per event?
You can only apply a well, when the event gets consolidated, if you want to apply several filters, you can't say if it passes all these filters do something. But the way you would do that would be to put all of that filter criteria into a single filter. So you could say if it passes filter A, notify Joe. If it passes filter B, notify Fred. And you could have different, criteria in those two filters. If you want to say if it passes filter A and filter B, the way that you would need to do that would be to apply those criteria into a single filter. And that you can do a couple of different ways of filtering events in Server Manager. We have a simple event log filter, and we have a complex event log filter. The simple one just lets you specify very basic criteria like an event ID and a log level, things like that, if you're just very simply looking for event 4624, for example. The complex event log filter allows you to create groupings with Boolean expressions and subgroupings and so forth. So you could say if it meets all of this criteria, or if it meets all of this criteria, or if it meets this one little piece of criteria, then pass the filter. So you can set that up however you'd like.
And Ryan, do we want to announce the winner, and then we'll continue answering questions until you kick us off? But
yeah, so I think let's take one more question, just because we're getting close, and then let's just announce the winner at the very end. One or two more questions, but I have a feeling you'll pick two, which isn't a bad idea. So.
Sure. So we'll do two more. Is SpecterSoft agentless?
Yes.
Okay. That was a quick one. Maybe we'll do three.
I'll let you sneak a third one in.
Sorry about that. I missed that, Ryan.
Oh, I said I'll let you sneak a third one in.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
The brevity of that one.
So, Jack, can it collect Unix or Linux logs and interpret data from different OSs?
We don't do any kind of interpretation of the data. We don't parse the data, other than applying your filters. But we can collect logs from Linux or Unix. There are a couple of really three different ways you can do that. If they're shared out through Samba, we can collect them just like we would text files on a Windows machine. If they're not, then we can either collect them over SFTP, or we can configure the Linux or Unix server to send that log data through Syslog. So there are a couple of different ways you can do that, but the short answer is that yes, we can collect logs from Unix and Linux servers.
I'm guessing Server Manager can be run as a service account. What rights will the service account need?
That's a good question, and yes, it does run as a service account. So what we were looking at was the console interface. That console interface connects up to the service. So the console can exist on as many computers as you like, and it connects to the service, and the service runs on a Windows server wherever you install it, and that's what does all of the work. It does need to run as a service account. It can actually run as local system, but you would then have to provide credentials for individual connections to servers. It's recommended to run it as a domain administrator account, and the reason for that is because you need to have access to collect the log information that you want to collect, and your standard users, for example, don't have access to query certain WMI resources, don't have access to query the security event log and things like that. So a domain administrator account is recommended. However, you can use another account as long as it has the access to the necessary resources.
All right. Well, I think that's going to have to be our final question. So, Ezra, if you want to announce the winner, or I'm happy to.
Sure, I will announce the winner happily. The winner is Rick Martin, and Rick, I think Ryan will reach out to you and get some information, and we'll get that iPad shipped out. Congratulations. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We definitely did not get to all the questions, but we will follow up, and we will address each one of them. You guys have been a great audience, and we really appreciate this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Well, thanks so much to our presenters and for the audience for being so engaged. Again, they can follow up with you, and you'll get the recording in about a week. So thanks, everybody, and have a great afternoon.